Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Gene Therapy. It's season 2 and we're kicking it off. And what better place to kick it off than at the place where the Super Bowl is going to happen this year, Phoenix, Arizona. I am excited. I'm your host, Coach Gene Clemons. Always good for you to come and hang out with me and just talk about some things that are on my brain. And I am joined by my good friend, Chris James, football game plan, 10 toes down for many years now, CJ. Always appreciate you joining me. Make sure, before I get anything started, make sure that y'all are checking out that Chopping It Up with CJ podcast. He really does a great job week by week breaking down the minutia of the game. If you're into sports betting and fantasy, he's got a day for that. If you're into just regular like picks, if you want to know why teams fail and why teams are succeeding, this is a podcast that you need to check out. Tell everybody where they can find your podcast at.
Sure, you can find it on Spotify or Apple Pod, most podcasting services. Remember, Chop It Up with CJ, it's right here. It's W with a slash. Chopping It Up with CJ. 4 different types of shows, to Gene's point. I do Make Good Mondays, basically. When I tell you to take some bets, I make good on it. I come back and revisit to make sure that I actually help you out. Weekside Wednesdays, varied topics. Turf Talk Thursdays, that's where I do the picks and the confidence points that are associated with them. And Fantasy Football Fridays, that's pretty self-explanatory.
Absolutely. And make sure that you're following him on all social media pretty much everything, right? CJ Florida 9?
Correct.
CJ Florida 9. You can always find me at Gene Clemons. We don't need to waste any time. We are here. It's the Soul Bowl #1. That's what I have been calling it. I don't care if it's cliche. I think we need to celebrate the things that we've never seen before.
Correct.
And off the rip, we've never seen 2 black quarterbacks manning their teams with the respect of their teams, not just there for the ride. Not just guys who've come along, we were going to make it without you. Guys who are the catalyst for success for their teams in Patrick Mahomes and in Jalen Hurts. Let's just talk about how epic this is that we get a chance to put this one away. No longer will we have to say, hey, we've never seen this.
Right. And to your point, these are the guys who are going to finish 1 and 2 in MVP voting. So clearly these are the guys that have pushed things forward. It's not the same quarterback, which is also a great thing, right?
Yeah.
You're seeing...
It's not your prototypical quarterback. Yeah.
So you're seeing varied types of guys. Mahomes is this guy who's basically got a lot of Brett Favre to his game, but also a lot of Peyton Manning to his game. You're seeing Jalen Hurts. Whether people want to believe it or not, he's got a lot of Tom Brady to his game. He's that guy who pushes people forward. One of the hardest workers that I've ever come across in a league full of hard workers.
See, I think for me, I look at Jalen Hurts very similar to the way I look at Steve Young, in the fact that he has the arm talent to get the job done. He is more cerebral than given credit for. Remember when Steve Young first came into the league, Steve Young was considered to just be a runner, a guy who they didn't believe could, manage a team and win it the way that traditional quarterbacks won it. He flamed out in Tampa Bay. He went over to San Francisco. He sat for some years, got a chance to learn under some good people, and then began to excel. And now, Hall of Fame later, we can see what it is. And now you look at what Jalen Hurts brings to the table. That same type of athleticism that sneaks up on you because he's faster than you think. He's stronger than he looks. Then you sleep on his arm talent. And all of a sudden, he's got 330 yards passing on 24 attempts, And so I think that when you look at these 2 guys not really getting it done in the conventional way, I'm going to be a statue in the pocket and stand around and look, and they can do that, but then they also bring that extra dynamic. It's great to see, and it's great to see that they have impeachable reputations.
Yes.
You don't have to worry about anybody trying to make it about something that it's not. Patrick Mahomes, the son of a professional baseball player, a guy who's grown up around pros, a guy who's been through issues, been through wars, have had to overcome adversity, went into a college program where they were struggling to win 7 and 8 games every year, was doubted. You've got Jalen Hurts, who came in as a 5-star at Alabama, took over and won the job from veterans as a freshman. Took his team to the championship game and got beat by the best quarterback in college football for the last couple of years. Maybe one of the best guys to ever do it in college football. Came back the next year, got them back to the situation again, only to then be replaced in the SEC championship game. We know the rest of the story. Third year, he's the backup to Tua, buys his time, gets his degree, transfers over to Oklahoma. Now he's a Heisman finalist.
Yeah. Comes
into the league, all of the doubts. So these are guys who've been forged in fire, coach's kid. So he understands what goes into being successful. There's no this guy is out partying, or this guy is his head might not be in it. You've never heard that about Patrick Mahomes. You've never heard that about Jalen Hurts, and not that any of that stuff stops you from being great, but it's just so. I think it's awesome that we don't have to have those. We don't have to listen to those conversations. The conversations are all respect and all love for what Patrick Mahomes brings to the table and for what Jalen Hurts brings to the table.
And you went into a lot of stuff there, and all of it was correct. I want to actually piggyback on a lot of the things you just said. So Steve Young, I think he was traded for a second and a fourth because Bill Walsh and that regime saw what they could do with him. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he started until he was 30 years old.
Yeah.
But let's look at Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is 23. I think he's actually younger than the first quarterback taken in this past rookie class.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's a couple of days, but still, it's enough, right? It just shows you how quickly this young man has ascended to being a leader and an MVP candidate. And then you look at the situation with Patrick Mahomes, 3-star athlete, right? He goes to that program. Yes, air raid in a game against Baker Mayfield. I think he threw for 700 plus yards. I think he had 800 total yards of offense, which is insane no matter where you're playing. And all he did was catch my eye as I had to hit up Emory Hunt. And I said, who the heck is this? Because he played against LSU in the Texas Bowl, and he was doing all this stuff, and I had never seen it. It just hit my eye different, and I knew there was something special there with that kid.
It's funny you say that because I think all of us, Emory, Brandon Howard, shout out to Brandon Howard, shout out to Teron Davenport. We were all like, yo, like when this is different. And when we started saying that nationally around that time, we were looking at 2 quarterbacks that we said, okay, these 2 quarterbacks for sure. And then I think even to the certain extent where you're like it's clearly this guy, right? Like this guy just does something different. And then the fact that you see him like fall and you see quarterbacks go in front of him, we don't have to keep bringing up the same. It's not those quarterbacks' fault. I want to make this clear, by the way, when we were talking about why quarterbacks are kind of pushed down, like why Jalen Hurts had to go in the second round, why Patrick Mahomes wasn't the first quarterback taken, why Deshaun Watson wasn't the first quarterback taken, why Mitchell Trubisky went number 1 overall. This is not a diss against Mitchell Trubisky. It's not Mitchell Trubisky's fault. He didn't draft himself. I wish nothing but success for Mitchell Trubisky. But unfortunately for Trubisky and for all of those quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield and all the quarterbacks that get taken over a guy that's just much better, it happens at every position, but quarterback is where it stands out more, right? Yeah. Because everybody will tell you, oh, we had plans to pick this guy. He was on our board. And then we look around and go, but if you think he's the guy, why is only one team trading up to go get this guy?
So to your point, a couple of things here. I remember that 2017 draft class, and it was actually referred to as a down class in the quarterback position. Anyone who knows me and follows me knows that I dedicate a lot of time to quarterback, and since 2016, that's been something that I think is one of my niches that I'm pretty good at. And I remember thinking the best quarterback that I've graded was Deshaun Watson. And the only reason Patrick Mahomes wasn't number one in my mind that year is because Watson existed. Mahomes is still my number 3 quarterback since then, with only Joe Burrow being right between them. I'm saying all this to say the way that class was positioned kind of bothered me. To your point, Trubisky going 2 overall to the Bears, they actually moved up. San Francisco, there was rumblings that they wanted Mahomes. Well, why not take him? You're right there. Okay. There was rumblings that Sean Payton said, well, we were thinking about Mahomes. You don't wait on a quarterback, and everyone knows this. So Andy Reid, being the genius he is, that team jumped up and got him at 10. When you look at these scenarios and these situations, what's frustrating is resume goes out the door, production goes out the door, and it feels like flaws are more closely examined while excuses are made for some folks where flaws clearly exist. And I just want consistency. If you're going to use something as a flaw against someone, or you're going to point out flaws, point out for everyone. If you're not, then don't do it. Just be consistent. That's all I ask for. I think that's all we all ask for.
Absolutely. I think one of the things, like you said, that gets me, and I talk about it all the time, is if you'll make the excuse for X, make the excuse for Y. If you won't give X a pass, don't give Y a pass. We saw this play out again, where you have a guy like Josh Allen, who was given all of the concessions for why he was terrible at Wyoming. Every concession. And then you see a guy like Lamar Jackson, who is criticized for every little thing that he did wrong, even though for 2 years straight he put up 2 of the most remarkable athletic feats that we've seen ever happen in college football. This man was in a pro-style offense, running a pro-style offense, and still rushing for over 1,000 yards as a quarterback.
In fact, there is a record that's only happened twice in FBS history. In the same season, someone, I believe it's rushing for 1,500 yards and throwing for 3,500. Happened twice. Lamar Jackson.
Jackson both times. Like, for him to be one of the top passing quarterbacks in college football, and you could just do away with this 3,000 yards that he rushed for over 2 seasons. Put it to the side. Yet for everyone to still call him a running quarterback. Then you fast forward to Jalen Hurts and you go, okay, well, people learned their lesson from Lamar Jackson. Except Jalen Hurts had to wait until the second round to hear his name called. And I think it's almost a blessing in disguise, even though I don't like to count people's pockets, because he's never getting those millions back, right? Like, you never make up for the money you don't make. You just make money. So I don't want to say it in terms of him not getting that rookie guaranteed money, that 5th year that puts you among the top 5 salaries in the league. But now he's 4 years, and the 5th year there's no 5th year hold. So now Philly has to pay him.
Yeah,
right.
I think everyone gets the chance to re-up after the 3rd year. So in the 4th year, you can pay a guy. It's happened a bunch of times. I think Josh Allen was paid in the 4th year. Yeah. Even though they had the 5th year option, Jalen has to be paid. So they're going to be negotiating this situation.
That's what I'm saying. He has to be paid.
He's going to get paid.
and the thing is he holds all the leverage. He holds all the leverage because there's nobody behind him. There's no Jalen Hurts behind him. Right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing is when you look at where he is, I love this part of the story. You know, Patrick Mahomes he's already cashed out $500 million when it's all said and done. 10-year contract or whatever it is, the craziest.
It's team friendly,
It's
which
team
it is.
friendly,
But
it
lets
also
him get
allows
to
him
an escalation point throughout the contract.
and it allows him to be able to go back to the table and go, hey, this is no longer.
And they'll play ball.
Yeah, they got no other choice because there's no Patrick Mahomes behind him.
He's Jordan.
Like, hey, look, I love Chad Henne to death, and I appreciate the fact that Chad Henne has been able to etch out a long NFL career as a backup, but he ain't Patrick Mahomes. He's not Patty. He's not him, and he's never going to be him. And there's nobody in the league him. So with that being said, talking about Patrick Mahomes for a second, I get upset when I see these rankings of quarterbacks, and we constantly see, since Patrick Mahomes has come into the league, the need to try to put somebody up on the level of Patrick Mahomes. I am on record as saying that the tiers go like this: Patrick Mahomes, some other dudes, and the rest of them. Like, and if I was being a little bit more specific, it's Patrick Mahomes. Then there's your guys who've earned the right to be in that second tier, in my opinion. Your Joe Burrows, your Lamar Jacksons. You know, if you want to put Josh Allen there, okay. If you want to put Justin Herbert there, okay. I wouldn't. But I'm saying, if you want to put those, if you want to sprinkle a couple of those guys in, before this past season, I would have said Deshaun Watson, but I feel like he's at a level where he's got to show me now.
Yeah.
You know, before this year, I would have said Russell Wilson, but he's got to show me now.
It's funny that you say Russell Westbrook because it's kind of feeling like
I know it's feeling very similar. I would say Aaron Rodgers, but he's old and you can see it. You can see it starting to dissipate. Brady, I already thought was kind of down into the third tier as it was, even though he's still highly effective. But that's the tiers, ladies and gentlemen. There's nobody doing what that guy does, and that guy could do everything your guys do outside of Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields with the ability to run.
Yeah.
He can't do that, but he can run.
Right.
Like if he wanted to put up 700-800 yards rushing a season, he could do that. If he wanted to Daniel Jones you, ladies and gentlemen, he could do that.
So do you mind if it's not even keeping it spicy, which by the way, I love the podcast.
Appreciate it. Shameless plug. We'll take it.
Here's what happened. A couple of weeks ago, I heard this question of, is Joe Burrow better than Patrick Mahomes? Which I immediately see. I'm an analyst. I consume data to the point where some people call me a computer. Here's what I want to do. So there was a stat that was created back in 2011 by ESPN called Total QBR, or QBR for short. It basically assessed every point of how a quarterback performs, based on the expected outcome versus the actual outcome, and gives you a range, 0 to 100, right? 50 is average. They did that back to 2006. They did some retroing on that to get stats for all these guys and make this whole situation come together so we can see how well quarterbacks performed. Now I want to focus on the number, 77. Why am I focusing on 77? Because it's a pretty good number. If a quarterback has a QBR of 77, that's a really good quarterback for a season, by the way. This is a season. So there have been 24 instances of that occurring since 2006. 4 by Peyton Manning, 4 by Tom Brady, 3 by Aaron Rodgers, 3 by Drew Brees, and a bunch of one-offs. I think Matt Ryan, his MVP year in 2016. 2017, I think it was Deshaun Watson and Dak Prescott, I believe, did it. 2019, Lamar Jackson. Why did I say 77? Because as a starter for 5 years, Patrick Mahomes has done it 4 times. And it's virtually his average, with his worst season being 62. By the way, I think he was getting married. A lot of stuff was going on.
A lot of stuff going on.
And this man is that's basically his career average. And all these other greats who are walking into the Hall of Fame or have already walked in, like Peyton Manning, they did it 4 times in an extremely long span. While this man is sitting here doing it as his average, pretty much.
That's his regular work.
Yeah.
that's his regular work.
I didn't call him Jordan for no reason. I didn't come up with that, but I use it because it's apt.
Yeah, I think the most telling thing for the most telling thing for Patrick Mahomes is that when we look at his career, which is still pretty like short, like right, he's not anywhere near done. It's almost like people are bored of his greatness.
You get used to it.
They're taking it for granted. They took this season for granted after starting the year by saying that this man was not going to be him because he was only Patrick Mahomes because of Tyreek Hill and the other receivers that had moved on and kind of, well, no more Tyreek Hill, so there's no more bombs away. Okay, I'll just do it a different way.
And all
with different
he did
people
was have a 77 total QBR again, and by the way, set the record for most yards, rushing and passing in a single season. That's all he did.
Yeah, most of those being passing, by the way. That's what he does. That's what he does. And it's just, I don't care who you are, you're not him. So just out of respect for Patrick Mahomes, it doesn't matter what happens in this game. Like, Jalen Hurts could go out here and throw for 700 yards. He's still not Patrick Mahomes. Like, we have to stop. And by the way, they won't do it with Jalen Hurts,
which is a question.
And that's the problem that I have, is that when we see these comparisons, it always seems as if whenever we have a brother as the guy, there has to be somebody on the same tier as him as that great white hope. I don't know why it is. Like, I can't just say, well, the entire race is colluding. That doesn't make any sense. But I think it's a conditioning. It's a conditioning that we see in the sport to say, well, one man can't stand alone if he doesn't look like what we deem the prototypical. Because it's not just that he's a black man, right? It's he's a black man, and he doesn't do it the way Peyton Manning does it. He doesn't do it the way that Tom Brady does it, right? It's not just that he's a black man. It's he's a black man, and he is doing it in a way that people think black people do it. Well, right? Like, that's the thing. Oh, he's a wheeling Dylan. He like he's in the sandlot. All of those little key terms that say he's not disciplined.
So here's kind of what I love to do this because I love talking about race and different things because I think that it's important to talk about these things.
This is the Soul Bowl. If there's ever a time to talk about race, ladies and gentlemen,
I'm gonna say what I think Patrick Mahomes kind of reminds me of in some respects. It's kind of how Brett Favre played with some level of recklessness, but he's able to rein it in and do things that Peyton Manning did with the quick checks and the understanding of where to go with the ball with some of that Tom Brady clutchness. Imagine putting all those things together. By the way, notice that all these people are white, but putting all those things together, what the heck would that be? 3 Hall of Famers, one guy who's called the GOAT, another guy who's called possibly the best quarterback of all time in some respects, and another guy who people called fun and John Madden loved. You put those 3 dudes together, and Patrick Mahomes came out. He's Baby Yoda. I don't know how else to put it, but he's not a real person.
It's not, and it's not really up for debate.
Correct.
Like what else is there to debate? You can't even put the resumes of these other young contemporaries up against his resume. He doesn't know what it's like to not be in the AFC Championship.
He's never played a road playoff game.
He doesn't know what it's like to not play in the AFC Championship. And this is his 3rd Super Bowl.
In 5 years of starting.
I mean, this to your point, this is Tom Brady stuff when it comes to the winning, right? But it's Peyton Manning stuff when it comes to the statistics.
And it's Steve Young stuff as far as Steve Young is the only dude with a 4-year run that looks anything like this. 92 through 95. That's it.
And Steve Young was doing this at 33, 34.
Yes.
Like, this man is not even
30.
touching 30.
He's 27.
Like, he's not even Like, and for all of the people who thinks, oh well, when his athleticism goes down, let me let y'all in on a little secret about athleticism that nobody tells you, but everybody that's an athlete knows. It's the last thing to go. Like, I am old and washed up with bad knees, and on any given day, if I decide I want to crank the athleticism up, it's still around. I'm just not Patrick Mahomes. So when you see, for instance, because I'm starting to think about guys who were athletes and did it forever and had a second. So your Warren Moons,
Randall
Cunningham's, right? Where he was such a tremendous athlete that even when he was older, he was still that level of athlete and still had that cannon arm and still able to do things that boggled the mind,
Yeah, one of the things about athleticism that, to your point, you gain more savvy. And when you're younger, you lean on it more. So you push it, 80, 90, sometimes 100% of the time. When you get older, you can still do a lot of these things. It's just, you understand, maybe I need to be a little judicious with it, and you gain more savvy. And I think that's what kind of gets left out of the equation with people who are quote-unquote athletic, as if they're not going to improve in other areas in other ways.
It's the nitrous button, right?
Yeah.
When you're younger, that nitrous button, you're hitting that thing all the time. Boom, boom. When you get older, you're just waiting for the right time to use it. You're waiting for the right time, and I'm about to, boom. You can even know when the young guy used it too early. Oh, too young, too early, young fella. Pow! You've seen it on Fast and Furious Forever.
Yep.
How they use that nitrous button matters. That veteran savvy, as you talk about. But to think that this man is doing that at 27 years old. He limped around the field the entire AFC Championship game only to wait for the one time that he had to hit the nitrous button, that he had to actually open it up and put some speed to it. And when he did, it was like, boom. And that's what a veteran does. That's what someone who's comfortable in their skin does, right? That's what someone who has found the glitch in the matrix does. And as we start seeing these quarterbacks who are finding the glitches in the matrix continue to ascend, it's going to be really hard for these guys who don't have that ability to be able to survive. Because, ladies and gentlemen, these defensive ends are only getting more and more athletic.
Scary.
They've got LeBron James out there playing defensive end. Not like some, like Reggie White was dominant. But he was just a physical presence that could just maul you. These guys are flying around you at 250 and 60 and 70 pounds and flying around you, or at 240 and just
still hip tossing people,
hip tossing you, and just being these ultra athletes. It's interesting because Philly has that type of defense.
Right.
They have the type of defense that says we could stop a Patrick Mahomes. We could. Well, stop might be a little bit too harsh. I apologize, Patty. We could make it difficult for him.
Right.
Stopping's a little bit, but very similar to Tampa Bay when Tampa Bay faced Kansas City. A little bit different in the fact that Kansas City had offensive line issues everywhere.
That's the way to put it.
But Tampa Bay had those edge guys who had the athleticism to be able to move laterally. And Philadelphia has that same thing, and they also have those dudes up the middle that are just pushing pockets.
Right.
I think that's what I'm really interested in watching is the defenses and how they deal with these two quarterbacks and these offenses, as opposed to just Jalen Hurts versus Patrick Mahomes, because they're never going to be on the field at the same time other than the hug and shake hands at the end of the game. And so like how does the Philadelphia defense corral Patrick Mahomes?
So here's the really funny part, and I give him credit for saying this, and I'm not going to be able to quote it verbatim, but Patrick Mahomes said he needed to kind of grow up and not be so reckless. And he said this year that's what he had to do. I think this Philly defense would do really well against last year and prior year Patrick Mahomes. It was kind of undisciplined, but he was so good that he got away with some undisciplined play. Mm-hmm. It's a problem this year. That Cincinnati game should have showed you that this dude is playing at a different level now. So I don't think these edge rushers are going to affect him nearly as much because, to your point, the offensive line is better than it was against the Bucs, but also Patrick Mahomes is better at making decisions quickly and not letting that pressure get to him. That's how you defeat pressure. I mean, people are only so fast, but guess what's faster? The ball coming out.
The ball's always going to beat you running.
Yep.
So also on that same note, we know that Jalen Hurts changes the equation in the run game. We know what he brings to the table as a passer, but in the run game he changes the equation because of the style of offense where they run, where he's always a threat to pull.
Right.
And that 11-on-11 football that I talk about all the time, that we see from some of these other teams now around the league, but they do it very well. And the difference is when he tucks it and runs. It's a weapon. It's a weapon.
Yes, it is.
And it's not just he's just going to run and slide. He's going to juke you. If you try to like arm tackle you, he's going to run through that. He has an ability to be dynamic with his running ability when you're trying to stop the run, but also when you're trying to stop the pass.
Right.
And so how does Kansas City and their weapons on defense, how do they combat a guy that gives you so many different layers like Hurts?
What's really frustrating for me personally, and I'm sure it is for him, even though you would never hear from him, is that shoulder's a real thing. And it doesn't limit him from the perspective that he can't go run, but it does limit some of his downfield passing. You can see that it looks different than it did. This guy was throwing one of the sweetest deep balls in the NFL this year, and in the playoffs it hasn't looked the same. So I think what's going to end up happening is because of that Chiefs defensive line has been pushing the pocket. They've actually been almost as effective as the Philly defensive line, and people don't want to, they're underrating how much they've been able to do that and the injuries that are on the offensive line of Philly. But the back end, they're young, but they have all sorts of talent. And that's the whole thing. We saw how they did to Joe Burrow, where they would get hands on the ball. The only time they lost is when better players were doing stuff. So yeah, A.J. Brown goes off, Devonta Smith goes off, because that's possible, we'll be fine. I hate it for Jalen that shoulder's a real thing, and that deep ball accuracy that he's had all season has been effective.
You don't think that the 2 weeks is going to give him a little bit of time to at least get it to where, hey, we can get through this game. If I open it up to a level, you think it's just going to be something that he's going to need a full off season to try to get under control, get back to where he was during the season?
See, with the Mahomes injury, I think the 2 weeks off assisted with Jalen's injury. That's one of the toughest SOBs in the NFL, Jalen Hurts.
Absolutely.
This isn't a toughness or tough through thing. It's literally, I don't think he can feel it the right way to put touch on the ball. And that's what the most frustrating thing is. He'll never say it, but I can see it. And that's the crappy part. 2 weeks is not going to do enough. I'm hoping I'm wrong, to be candid, because I'd love being wrong for a guy like this who deserves to be healthy. But I think it will affect him.
Yeah, and so that I think that also brings in the point, right? Like, okay, so Jalen Hurts comes in, he's not 100%. Patrick Mahomes comes in, he's not 100%. It's actually the opposite of what people believe is their best attribute, right? So for Mahomes, okay, it's lower body, but he's still got the arm. For Jalen Hurts, it's the shoulder, but he's still got the legs. Do you see them possibly leaning more on that, knowing that the other the other part of their weaponry is compromised, or do you just think it's something where they've just kind of learned how to deal with and maintenance within the moment?
I think they will lean more into it. There's a prop bet, I'm going to forget it, but it's basically like 10 rushing attempts for Jalen Hurts. I think he does run the ball more this game because, again, we talked about his toughness. This guy is going to make the decision to make sure that he's not negatively impacting the team. And if he doesn't feel, he throws a couple of those deep balls in there out there, he'll use his legs. He knows this is the end of the road.
Yeah.
Same thing with Mahomes. Mahomes knows that ankle's not right, and if he takes one bad step, he can re-aggravate it. He's going to lean more into getting the ball out of his hands. I think that both guys are going to lean into the non-injured portion of the game more than they usually would. Because they do, to your point, everyone thinks Jalen's just a runner. He will dead-eye you with the pass.
No,
because
absolutely.
That runner sucks you up. Good night. Mahomes, his strength for his whole career has been it almost looks kind of clumsy, but it's clumsy athletic. Right around you in circles, takes off when he needs to, kind of does this weird run, but he's skating on you.
Yeah.
So it sucks that they're not at a level that's near 100%.
I do like the fact that they're playing in a controlled environment, though. Like, I do like the fact that we're not going to have to worry about weather being a factor. It's windy as hell here in Phoenix. We're not going to have to worry about the wind because there's no way
Coverage. Yep.
So at least we're getting a controlled environment where those guys can be at the best that they can be with what they're dealing with.
Right.
The fun part about it is that you're going to get to see these two very aggressive defenses just go and try to hunt these dudes down. Like that's the fun part, and it's interesting because we're in the media suite, here in the convention center, and we can hear, and you probably hear in the background, conversations about the different quarterbacks and what they can do and what the offenses are going to do and what the defenses are going to do. Like, we have two legitimate defenses that are adept at hunting. Like, they get after the quarterbacks.
Yes.
And then we have two quarterbacks who are really good at staying away from people trying to hunt them. So, like, it's the ultimate, like, cat and mouse game. And the team that comes out and is able to exact their will defensively is going to have that inside track to win it. I do believe that the math that's going to work differently for Philly that didn't work for Cincinnati because they're stubborn is that if Philly gets a lead on you, you're not going to get Jalen Hurts throwing a bunch of passes. If Philly gets a lead on you, they are going to enact the Jason Kelce button, and you'll all of a sudden start seeing the best center in the history of football. I don't want to hear you people trying to give me these dudes that had these careers where they only had like a 5-year or a 6-year run where they were really good. Well, he played 20 years or 18 years, but only 5 of them were good. Jason Kelce is the best center ever. You want something spicy? There you go. You want a hot take? There you go. Jason Kelce. Best center ever. Philly's going to touch that Jason Kelce button, and all of a sudden, every play, Jason Kelce is going to be pulling around somebody, going to heat seek a linebacker or a DB or something. If they get a lead up, that becomes an 8-9 play, 7 to 10 minute drive. Whereas the mistake that Cincinnati made is they got a lead, and because they weren't just willing to turn around and hand it to these backs that are actually, like, they have some talented backs, they allowed the clock to stay within striking range for that dude. I don't think Philly does that. Like, if they're able to get a legitimate touchdown lead and then Kansas City goes 3 and out, that next drive, they're taking 6 minutes off the clock. They're going to pull and extract the time away, which I think is the number one strategy of beating Kansas City.
Keep away.
You have to play keep away. You got to extract the time so that dude with that offense doesn't get as many opportunities and as much time when he has the ball.
Yeah, no, that's we all know this, but at the same point in time, it's good that you reiterated. The best way to beat a team like Kansas City with that dude at quarterback, don't give him the ball. And Philly will lean into that. And I've been very proud of how they've stuck to their guns. They've adjusted things. They've run different schemes. They've done stuff. But the major thing they've done is kept their personality, right? And they leaned on, to your point, he could actually be the most important person on that offense, Jason Kelce, because that offensive line, they have talented guys, but they go as he goes. He cleans up so many things that could possibly happen that they're able to just do their job. They don't have to worry as much as some other teams do, because he is the, to your point,
he's the magic eraser.
Yeah.
He's the magic eraser. Like, oh, you let that guy go? Okay, that's cool. I'll just come over and pick that guy up for you.
The only thing that I think Kansas City, and they might implement this at a point, when they think that Jason Kelce's going to end up trying to climb and do all this stuff, you bring a well-timed blitz from a hidden guy, from one of those linebackers, like a Nick Bolton, go and hit him before he gets a chance to even get anywhere. Yeah. You got to do that. You have to disrupt that.
Or you put that man over him in a one technique and force him to knuckle up. Right?
The crappy portion about that makes sense. He's good enough to adjust, 4 out of 5 times and win. But if he doesn't see it coming, it's much harder on the fly to adjust.
That one time. That's all you need is that one time to get there and get home. Those are the margins that we're talking about. I want to get into some other positions. You talked about defensive back a little bit with the young guys in Kansas City. It's a veteran bunch in Philadelphia, and probably the best overall defensive backfield in football right now. Right? Like when you talk about veteran leadership, savvy, pelts on the wall, they've got it all. They've got guys who have been there, done that know the game, Pro Bowlers, all pro status, versus those young dudes, those pups out there that people always use they're almost too young to know they're not supposed to be where they are. Right. Like how do you see that playing out? Because we saw some weaknesses in that Kansas City secondary in the fact that they don't high point balls very well. They don't high point balls very well versus a team with 2 to 3 guys who are really, really good at just going up and snatching the ball out the air. We saw that exposed in Cincinnati. What I like about them though is that they don't get down on themselves. There's no they're not defeated. They just keep plugging away.
The shortest of memories.
They have Eli Apple level amnesia. Because
luckily not his level of play.
Not his level of play, and we don't mind talking bad about Eli Apple. Eli Apple, you got an issue, you can come see us. We're cool. We'll buy you a drink while we tell you that you should probably retire. That level, by the way, Eli Apple's been better at football than I've ever been. Let's just keep that right.
Yeah.
He's way better at football.
NFL, better than both of us, but
than I've ever been.
Contemporaries, bro.
But according to your guys, anyway, I could do a pod on that. It's the level of audacity of this dude. He is it's almost like he doesn't watch film. But yeah, that level of I just gave up this touchdown. That's cool. I'm right back on as soon as you come. And it's never say die. It's plug away, make a play. Right? It's not just plug away, die by 1,000 paper cuts. They're going to make a play if you keep trying them. At some point they're going to get it right. Is it enough though? And that's going to be the thing. Is it enough to subdue the effectiveness of the passing game deep, which opens up all of the stuff underneath with RPOs and with the run game that Philadelphia really wants to do to you. They're only striking you over top to thin you out. so that they can then go boom, 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 boom. You come up, I hit an RPO, and now Devontae Smith's running wide open, or Dallas Goedert's running wide open on a slant route. Is it enough? Can they hold enough to make the math what it needs to be in order for them to take that run game away?
L'Jarius Sneed is extremely important, and the fact that he's out of concussion protocol and he's healthy, because if he wasn't playing, cancel Christmas. Someone would be open, I don't want to say all the time, but enough where Jalen Hurts wouldn't have to make a pinpoint pass. Someone would be open. Sneed gives him the flexibility to just literally go run, chase, be what you need to be. And Sneed can blitz off from that nickel position. He can play responsible inside and make sure that whoever's playing in the slot is handled, not eliminated, but handled. So he gives the young guys the opportunity to just go be athletes and go be football players. So I think that they can't shut down that passing game. I think Jalen Hurts has a pretty good passing game based on this. Actually, the running game I don't think is going to be as big of a factor as some people think it will be in this game. So I think they can do that. On the opposite side, there's a real key here. Devontae Maddox does not play. I think that they have a real problem because they could use Chauncey Gardner-Johnson as safety in that case, right? Take care of the slot position because those exterior corners, Bradbury, Slay, they are excellent.
Yeah.
But that's not what Kansas City does now. Kansas City is basically operating with multiple tight ends.
Between the hashes. They're between the hashes now.
Now, if you don't have Maddox, now C.J. Gardner-Johnson has come down. And you know who gets affected? They keep doing these ends, Reed Blankenship, sorry, out of position, touchdown. We saw it against Dallas.
Yep.
And that's where they're going to take advantage. So if Maddox is not healthy enough to play, they're going to target Reed Blankenship. And it's going to be unfortunate for the young man.
Yeah, and I mean, Reed Blankenship's another one. He's another one of those guys that you look up and you go, wow, he's playing significant minutes.
Yeah.
But we have to remember that in the NFL where there is a salary cap, you can't be deep everywhere. And with injuries, like they can withstand injuries on the defensive line. They're deep enough there.
Right.
But in the defensive backfield, once you start getting past them first four, things get real iffy.
Yeah.
Out there, and that's a testament to what Kansas City has done with essentially turning their secondary over to all these young guys that to be able to hold up and be there even as linebackers are in and out and some defensive linemen are missing. Is there a special teams play in this game? Do you think special teams at some point will show up? Because Sky Moore is a problem.
Yeah. Sky Moore, he had an issue that permeated for too long. I think he lost confidence because it was kind of like the Jamar Chase thing where he couldn't catch it preseason. And it was just, we know who you are and what you can do. Once he got over that, cancel Christmas.
Yeah.
Sky Moore, same thing. Dude was killing when he was in college. Then all of a sudden, a couple of punts, he lost some confidence. That's over. So if they kick the ball to Sky Moore, that's a problem. They have to avoid that. And I do think that the kickers will be more important in this game than people realize because you had two kickers who have had issues at points in this season, especially Harrison Butker. So if they lose confidence at any point with a missed kick, that'll force the hand of the offense to do something that maybe they don't want to do.
Well, but you also got to think too that they're lucky in the fact that they don't have to worry about the elements. So that Harrison Butker howitzer that he has for a leg is going to be on full display. Like, I don't know where it's going. But it's going to get there. Like, I don't know if the special teams play comes on a return or a muff or something. I don't know if it comes down to a kick, but I feel like at some point, a special teams play is going to have to be made in order for them to get this thing done. I don't foresee a blowout. I don't foresee a blowout either way. Things can happen, turnovers can happen, obviously, I don't foresee a blowout either way. But I can envision this being so close that a special teams play here or there can make the difference in field position and flipping the field, to be aggressive offensively, defensively, in trying to score the game winning points. Like somewhere along the line, we could see special teams play a real factor.
Yeah, and to your point, I think it's going to come in just a field position situation, right? So a block's missed, so you get stopped on third down. Now you got to punt because usually both of these teams are hyper aggressive, especially with fourth and short. They're going for it. Like 75% of the time, they're going for it. Who has the punter who knocks the ball inside the 5-yard line? Who has the punter that it bounces at the 2, and instead of being stopped or downed, goes in, right? This field position flip, that's going to be the key, where that ball is, because Philly's offense is able to run so much cleaner in the way they want it to if they're at the 20. Kansas City, I think they can do more stuff if they get down early, but they won't have a sustained drive. They'll just get it out of there. And that's their whole thing because Andy